So sit up straight and tall. Start to feel more rather than less. And allowing, right? It will actually get warmer. I've already been out and about this morning trying to drop something off, and it's like, holy chilly. Unbelievable. So I need to remember, like, it's funny when it's cold out, and when you're cold, it's the most important time to take deeper breaths, even when your breath wants to be shallow, right? In protection. Interesting that we protect and we shallow breathe. Doesn't quite make sense. Kind of means the mind is in too much control. So land, pay more attention to your exhale. Keep letting go. The inhale fills you up, and the exhale, you keep letting go. Because you're starting the transition towards creating more focus, and in a focus that actually includes your mind and your body. So as you locate yourself in the room, and it's way more natural to follow what's in front of us, especially when you're looking at a screen. But try to open to what's behind you. And that, sometimes I do a couple of things, right? I always say, like, feel your back body. But sometimes I try to imagine what it would actually try to do this, try to feel as if I had eyes on the back of my sternum, and even eyes on the back of my head, right? And when I do that, I don't know if you can feel that, this happens to me at least, the awareness of my eyes drops back into my head. So when I try to, like, be visually aware, which is a paradox, of behind my head and behind my sternum, the energy, instead of coming out my eyes, has to sit back into my body. Pratyahara, that's one of the limbs. So a lot of times the instructions are trying to help you achieve a different placement of your mind into your body. Your mind's actually not in charge. It just thinks it is. So hopefully, as you try to be aware, visually aware of what's behind you, you soften your inside of your mouth, and your lips staying together and your teeth slightly apart. And you let go of the skin on your temple. So all these energies coalesce in you as soon as you go inward. Because you've learned through practice how to go inward and the different ways of doing it. But it's a sensation, it's a change of quality in your awareness when you're inward more, when you're more in your body and less out into the world with your mind. Allow there for a few breaths, because we're going to add in asana to this more inwardly balanced place. So now I'm going to bring more effort into this calm. So for me right now, I'm going to make sure I'm more forward on my sitting bones, but I'm going to try to bring that quiet place with me as I start to sit more grounded. Feel in my feet, my sitting bones, and start the lift of my chest, the spreading between the shoulder blades. And if you went too fast, if you didn't bring the quiet with you, repose, re-surrender, re-release, and do it again. Extend from the inner groin to the inner knee down to the feet. Have this gentle pressure down. Help your core rise. Drop the shoulder blades down to actually help the chest lift. Always balancing opposites. Feel your sturdiness of your vessel, the clarity of your intent, because you have the quiet with you. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. And release, but as you release, feel the changes when your alertness goes away, like when your spine goes back to that sunken resting place, which is also an asset, right? So that sunken resting place is not a mistake. It should be one of the places you know, right? One of your places, not the place, right? And that's one of the things that I think gets really, really hard is to not, especially when you haven't had enough mind-body practice. But think about before you started yoga that you didn't really know that you always defaulted into one place way more than other places, right? And your mind will always do that. It'll find the place of least resistance, but where it thinks it's in the most control, right? And ready to prepare, right? All right. So quickly come back up into more of an asana position. And as soon as you go up, go down. Like there's some basic relationships here. So here's me up and down. So as soon as my chest is up, I'm not just lifting my chest alone. I'm lifting my chest and hitting down to my sitting bones. And that's one of the real benefits of practice, is that this isn't an isolated movement anymore, right? That like when I do this, things happen other places that I'm aware of, right? So there's some fundamental relationships that your asana practice reveals to you and makes you more aware of, right? But if I think it every time I lift my chest, I have to think about going down, that's not going to be as effective during your day, right? And so one of the things that I remember as a really important time of that yoga was really changing my life was when I realized that I could talk with my whole body, that I wasn't just needing to talk with the places I could control, like that. In fact, my whole body started to be able to move as a whole. So I know it sounds goofy, right? Remember the couple weeks ago where I was talking about clapping? Do you remember this weird class? Like trying to clap with your whole body? Was most of you in that class, right? Now think about what I was teaching there, right? Or trying to have you experience there, is that I was trying to get your awareness to come together into a singularity, right? Right? So just, we don't have to clap like weird lunatics again, but like as you bring your hands together, have everything come together, right? So we did a lot of this, trying to like all of a sudden gather up, which the newsletter came out this weekend. It was about gathering up all of us, all of you, both what the tangible and intangible, and bring it into a singularity, right? So I'm just not moving my hands together. My inner thighs are coming together. Like everything about me, I'm beginning to remember prana follows your consciousness. So if I'm letting more of me come together and come together, right? If more of me is coming together, remember, and if I see this as representing my entire being as opposed to just my hands are just my hands. This is how we live in the world, right? No, if you practice, you can start having more of you come together. So this is what I taught a couple weeks ago, right? And then I was like, and I put it in terms of sound, right? Like, can you get it so the sound changes, right? So that was I missed it, right? So I'm trying to get all of me, but I get more of me to come together when I don't put my hands and make a sound. Like, so when I go, I'm coming, I get my abdomen involved, my inner thighs involved, everything, boom. So the coming from outward to inward, right, is a skill. That's like collecting yourself. So I'm trying to collect my awareness of prana together. That was like last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever that was. So remember that feeling. Sit up straight and tall. See now, like, and I don't just remember. I don't just mean your memory. See the energy of this all coming together. Sit up straight and tall and remember the feeling of that energy coming together, and do it while you're sitting here with your chest lifted. So this energy of being able to draw together and gather yourself up for the midline. The midline has way more energy in it, right? If you know how to gather yourself. So now today in this class, I want to practice doing exactly the opposite. Okay, so that was the gathering. And then asana typically is a grounding, a gathering, followed by an expansion. Okay, so if I don't gather into the midline, when I move, I just move, right? This idea of being able to gather into stability in your midline is essential for expression. Right? It's part of the outward expression if your outward expression is actually going to be balanced. Right? So you got that gathering part. And now I want you to like do just that. So like, so I'm going to try, and this is weird stuff, whatever, right? I'm trying to show you the building blocks of what helps asana refine. So there's a place in the center of my chest. Find it, like not just with your hand, but find it. Put your hands in it. So do you remember those cats in the cradle thing? Do you ever do that as a little kid? Where you'd go in and you'd change the yarn with each other? And there was the ones where you had to go up and under, get your hands on the thing, the yarn, and then pull it apart. Remember those things? Can you remember what I'm talking about? And I didn't do that a ton, right? But now instead of coming together this way with everything, I want you to have that place in the center of your chest, come into it and pull it apart, right? And then come into it and pull it apart. So I'm taking time. I got to stop talking for a second because I want to actually feel what I'm doing and pull it apart. I don't just want there to be actions. I want there to be the gathering and the expression. So now for me, I can already feel. So So for me, I'm going to go under, right? Because for whatever reason, I feel more prana this way. Like I want to go under, gather, and then go out, right? Under, mirroring the midline, through the midline. That would have been when the hands were clapping. And then back out, right? And if you think this is just your imagination, I kind of want to tell you to screw off, right? This is not just your imagination. This is your being, right? This isn't just your mind, right? Come through. Remember, our nervous system is super connected, both inwardly and outwardly, right? Okay, so I'm telling you, this is what I'm experiencing now. And I don't know if, I actually, when I get my hands closer here, before I go out, I feel a change in my energy when my hands are here before I go out, right? So there's this outward coming up and under. For me, it matters that it's under, right? I come through, something feels more centered right here. And then I'm going out. And then back under, through, and out. And all of a sudden, more of me, of my subtle body, is coming into play, into this action, into this movement. I got my bamboo plant is getting in my way today, right? Okay, so now, because this has been so upper body focused, right? I want to take some time, because remember, than most of you, I sense my legs less than you do, right? But I'm going to tell you, on the subtle body, I probably sense it as much, right? So now, after I've done all these kinds of finding this, my center, by doing this movement, I want to make sure I'm including my legs, right? So I'm going to take some time and actually ground my legs and find the core relationship between here and here, right? So I make sure, and I'm actually going to wiggle myself a little bit, right? All this stuff I'm doing to prepare for the best couple of asanas that my whole practice might be about, right? So I'm making sure my legs are here. Now, in a lot of classes, we have practiced this action, legs back, chest up, right? This is the core of sun salutation, right? Where you come up and through and forward. So try that a couple of times, right? Up, through, and forward, lifting the chest, making sure it's connected to your legs, right? So when I fall back, I want to use my legs and leverage to come forward. And I'm just watching that movement through the center line. My core channel is having a change of balance around it, right? Because remember, I'm trying to gather, right? I'm trying to get more of me in my asana, right? And then release. And so now we go back to this other practice, right? Where now I'm going to keep the feeling of my legs in my awareness more. And I did that by making it tactile. And then I want to go under, up, right here. It actually, I lose it if I touch my hands together. It's unbelievable, so weird. Somehow when I go like this, I feel more of my core channel, right? And then out, under, through, up, out. Now on this next one, I want you to see what I'm going to do. I want to go under, through, and then straight up, not go out. This takes a different quality of my awareness, right? If my spine is going to be integral, and I'm going to do it with one hand because I go off balance. So go one hand up, around, through, other hand up, around, through, and then I'm going to grab my chair and rise up, right? So all of a sudden, more of me, including my balance, is coming part of the rise, down, through, up, down, through, up, grounding my legs, remembering that I've got to keep in my base, feeling my sitting bones, feeling my feet, and taking a couple of breaths. So if you can do that sequence two-handed without going off balance, go ahead. But ask yourself, when you do it with two hands, are you having to grip too hard to stay balanced? For me, why I went to one hand was because I gripped too hard to stay balanced and I cut myself off from unity with the room. So you choose on this, we're going to go through the next sequence, like same sequence, and you choose whether you do one hand or two, right? Based on your sense of what you're actually staying connected with, right? So again, now I'm coming back and through to remind myself of the core channel, right? I'm going to go under, up. I'm going one hand up and then back down, around, under, up, coming forward on my sitting bones, back down, right? I'm going to try to do two hands and watch how it's not as good, but I'm going to practice it anyway, because not everything has to be under, through, up, and watch what's as good or what's bad. I don't know, like I over tense my neck. So now for those of you that can move your body better, we're going to add one more instruction, which is going to be really hard for my mind to do, right? Is that's why I'm going to do it for sure one-handed. I'm going to go over, down, and up. And if I'm going to raise my left hand, I'm going to press down through my right foot. If you're doing both hands, as both hands go up, hit both sits bones down and both feet down, right? But I'm going to have to break it apart because I can't do it all simultaneously and stay connected, right? So under, through, up and down, right? Under, through, up and down, and I'm trying to go opposites. If I'm doing one hand at a time, under, through, up, and opposite down, under, through, all of me, up and down. And then on the last one, I'm going to try to do it with both arms again. And I'm going to accept that it's not going to feel as connected, right? Under, through, up and down. Oh, that's not nearly as good for me, right? All right. So now, one of the things that I like to do in my practice is come back. If I was building a sequence, I want to come back through the sequence and go back, kind of like walking into a room and then backing out of a room. So I want to go back to this feeling, because as I introduced more asana to it, I lost connection to the importance of this little action. Out. Right? So as if you're putting your hands through the empty space in the center of your chest and then pulling it out, right? And I can just smile because I can feel how much I sacrificed as I went into more of the action of the asana, right? By reminding myself what I was giving up in terms of connection when I moved more of my body, right? That's interesting to me. All right, left hand up, exhale, turn. We're just doing a gentle twist, right? Up, down, twist, right? One more time. Inhale up, down, twist. Inhale up, down, twist. Ground, I have to balance out. I'm going to ground symmetrically. And then I'm going to gather myself up as I bring my hands into prayer for a second. And that could be, prayer could be with your hands on your thighs, if that's a better balance, right? So everyone try this. So feel what you feel here. For those of you that like, I lose some balance when I do both hands. So feel what you feel, the connection here, right? Now bring your hands down to your thighs and still feel that connection here. So for those of you that lose something too much when you bring both hands in front of you, learn to do this one. Hands in prayer without your hands in prayer.
Appreciate you letting us.
So someone's got their they're unmuted and we're hearing, right?
Yeah, I just muted them, Matt. We're okay.
Okay. All right. And then so hands in prayer again. Now keep that connection to the core and drop your hands. Little actions like this is what allow you to do adaptive yoga, where I can have my hands in prayer without my hands in prayer. That's part of how yoga becomes universal, right? But notice the type of focus that it takes to have your hands in prayer without your hands in prayer. Now, one of the reasons why I would not call that imagination, imagination typically reaches out, right? This is not a reaching out, is it? It's actually a different sensation, right? And so it's not being led by my mind. It's being led by the sensation of my spine. So bring your hands back to prayer. Keep that feeling in your spine. Drop your hands. The hands in prayer was only the doorway. The energy that mattered was the energy here. That's what's key to hands in prayer. This is just one way in, right? And so you start figuring out. So once I start to have my hands in prayer lightly here, then I can start feeling other lightness, right? When I'm off balance here a little bit, I have a harder time putting eyes on the back of my head and the eyes on the back of my sternum, right? When I do it here, I actually, for me, because of balance, I actually can be more aware of 360 degrees. All right. So one of the times that, every once in a while, really bizarre instructions are really good for me. And I have to work on them for decades, right? And one of the instructions one time I read from B.K. Iyengar it was for pranayama, not for asana, but it applies to asana. He said, he didn't say imagine, he said, let every skin cell have eyes, right? And it's a really wonderful instruction, right? What would it be if, now it's easier to find on your skin at first, right? What would it be if all of the things touch in the air? Right now, the end of my nose is a little cold because no matter how it's cold, so I can feel that one first, right? But if all the places where my skin was exposed, I have eyeballs, like the eyes were opening. Now, in the past, the last few months, I've also been giving you instructions like feel the inner circumference of your rib cage. Right? What if the inside circle of your rib cage also had eyes? And so you've got this outer vision and then this inner vision that looks outward, which I'm locating for my mind in terms of my rib cage. And when I'm both feeling the outward vision and the vision that goes from inner aspect to outer aspect, it's a really good time to breathe. So I've got inner and outer vision. And I'm taking a couple breaths because I want inner and outer vision to do the poses. when the poses get more physical. Good, and then release, because I can't keep inner and outer vision and manage my day-to-day life, right? It's too much. Unless maybe I was another level of being, right? But just because I was thinking about inner vision just now, doesn't it kind of blow your mind that Stevie Wonder had an album called Inner Visions? Think about how a blind person reaches through the world. They're doing it from an inner vision and sense coordination, right? And then I just can't ever stop being inspired by the fact that a 13-year-old boy's first hit as a blind boy was called Fingertips. And he went out alone on the Ed Sullivan Show. And if you can find it online, watch it. He went out alone on the Ed Sullivan Show as a blind 13-year-old boy and sings Fingertips, because that's how he touches the world. But he'd have to do that. And then a later album is called Inner Visions, right? He's having to touch through his fingertips with inner vision to touch the world, not outer vision. That's what we're all aiming for in asana, right? All right, so now for the more movement fun, lift up and get that sense of space that we've been building. I'm gonna go up and down a few times, like just wanna get that extra length in my low back, because I've been trying to tell you that space is magic space, right? Right, that lightness. And then right away, I want to put in the prayer from that lightness. So, but I'm going to do the prayer from this lightness. I'm going to keep my chest lifted, put my hands on my thighs, go into prayer though in the center of my chest. Right, and then I'm going to go side to side. So here comes more fun, right? Instead of so much inner focus. Can you imagine where songwriters find music, right? Back and forth, right? And now come forward. So the music that they're writing and playing is like this movement we're doing right now. But they hear, before it's created, they hear the music before its expression, right? And then forward and back, right? So we're actually being aware of the place that all of us are more creative, right? And then the movement is the expression. And then come back in the center, right? Come forward, gather yourself up and lift your chest. So I'm gonna stay here, upward facing dog. So I'm balancing my hands on my thighs. I'm making there be more effort now. Right? I'm coming forward and I'm coming up through the center of my chest, because damn it, the center of my chest likes being outward, right? So this is really an example of inner vision coming out. The inside edge of my sternum comes up out into the world. And then to help the expression, I roll my shoulder blades down, spread them apart, ground my sitting bones, ground my feet. This is it coming into a song. Right? And then everything changes and I drop out of it. I exhale. I inhale, coming into the beginning of the song, of the singing of the song, right? Broaden, open, ground. One of the hardest things when you come into full pose is not to make the pose static at the outer edges. Right? There's a tendon release, watch the movement back to the drop. So when you get to your full pose, there's a tendency to hold as if like you're holding your breath at the full pose. So I suggest you never, the fullness of your full pose is not the fullness of your physical ability. Don't think about fullness in terms of it getting harder at the end, because then you'll hold your breath, right? So come forward, lift, fill the vessel, feel your hands in prayer to find where the center of your chest is. find that midline and express the hood of the chest, as I often describe, around that midline where your hands were in prayer. Ground your sitting bones, broaden your sacrum. Inhale. Exhale from the back ribs to come farther to the back ribs. Inhale to widen the hood of the chest. Exhale to drop the shoulder blades down. And then release. So that was upward facing dog, right? Where everything got narrower and more constrained, but that helped the fullness come into the pose, right? And that's part of what it is to gather yourself up and then come forward again. So you get the outline, you come up in and through, and you're gathering the energy of the center of your chest and expressing it through your body. And then using your body to help the expression. Keeping aware of the midline. Remember, because you gotta, when your hands came together in the clap, that showed you the midline. But now you're taking that inner vision and you're moving it out through your chest. Good, and then release. This is taking, I don't know about you, but trying to go inner and outer vision like this is taking a lot of my focus. I'm having to feel a lot, right? So I want to get not so serious. Inhale and take your arm up. Exhale down. So I've been practicing long enough to know that I was getting too inwardly focused, trying to make it happen, right? So I'm just doing something to stay open and not on the inner vision so much, right? And then I'm just gonna go back and forth. I'm realizing I want inner and outer vision, right? Good, and then I wanna get expansive. So again, I want everyone to take their legs wide, right? Try to get them wider and go, oh yeah. The simple out. Remember, your mind is always gonna chase the world. Right? So it's easier to get your mind to project out, right? So including your body, right? So now, because my body position is different, now I want my inner vision to go out, inner vision, right? Inner sensation to go out through my legs. Now at first, I'm just gonna ground my sitting bones. Even though my feet aren't as connected to the floor, I'm gonna ground my feet. So I'm going to get this expression from grounding. So I'm going to sit up tall, open this part of my chest, ground my sitting bones, and then express in my inner groin to the inner knee. Now I'm going to try to include more of my inner vision. I'm going to broaden the space between my shoulder blades, ground my sitting bones, and express out through my feet, through my knees, and then down to my feet. Then I'm going to release. And I'm going to do it again. Posing and reposing, right? And then release. It is one of the real tools in developing your mind's awareness. Because remember, your awareness of your mind is probably the dumbest, right? And so then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to engage, lift up, extend out, right? Through my knees down to my feet. And I'm gonna have you change gravity. Move over to one side. So I'm making sure I'm staying grounded by leaning onto either a table or my thigh, or I'm doing it on my thigh. And now I'm making sure that my inner vision is ready to activate outward. So I'm lifting my chest, breathing into the circumference of my rib cage, keeping awareness of my sitting bones. And then I'm going to go the other. I'm going to feel that. Whew. Boy, that. And then I'm going to, so I got to take that in for a second. That was actually intense for me. And then I'm going to go over the other way. And again, trying to get the inward to outward expression that's at the core of every yoga pose. Good, and then release. I want to remind myself of the midline, so I'm going to come back with my legs. Ground him, but I know, you don't know this, but I know this is just a temporary landing of the midline, right? And then I'm going to go back out again. So one of the things that I'm constantly exploring in my yoga practice is, in what ways can I make gravity my ally and helping the expression of my yoga poses? All right, so everyone just let your chest drop a little bit and have your legs wide like this, and then take your arm out. That's how you do it every single day, all through your day, right? Kind of movements that you think are disconnected that aren't, because you're not being our version. Everyone's got a version of Stevie Wonder's inner vision, right? So now we're going to try to add the inner vision, right? So I'm going to actually try to feel the difference between that, just throwing it out, coming forward on my sitting bones, feeling through my feet, lifting my chest, and then as if it's almost an accident, taking my arm wide. But this is where the song hits the air, right? Is out here, right? And then release, and then out this way. But I'm doing it from a more grounded position, so I'm using inner vision and outer expression, right? Amy, could you, yeah. Inner vision. Now I'm going to make it a sequence. That's by refining it, I include my inner vision, right? If I introduce rhythm, not just a slower pace, I help my inner vision, right? Out. Well, what if I inhale when I raise my arm? Exhale when I come back. All of a sudden, more of me gets better. Now I'm adding rhythm, right? I'll try to synchronize these actions with the breath, or not. But I'm trying to make sure I'm exhaling here, inhaling here. So my inner vision doesn't have to go through interpretation in order to be expressed. It actually just happens with my breath. Right. And then I'm going to come back. Now I want to even use more grounding. Now I want gravity to help my expression this way by leaning in the opposite way. Right? I want my chest, my inner vision, hands in prayer, inner circumference of my rib cage to open. I'm using the grounding here, and then the expression. I'm gonna hold it for a while. I'm gonna figure out where my head should be. My own, be your own teacher. Figure out where your head should be. Right? And then I'm back. I'm gonna go on midline. I'm gonna ground again. Then I'm gonna add grounding, changing in gravity one way to refine the other way. Right? So I'm using gravity here and my spine to refine a movement in the opposite direction. Now I gotta remember to find the inner circumference of my rib cage. Right? Find out where my own head should be. And then back. Center. Midline. Reminder, because in the movement, I lose the midline. Gonna do it again now. Gonna get the rhythm of it. Lean over. Expand. Ground through, this is my left hand up here. Ground through the right foot. Balance the right side of my rib cage with the left. take a more equanimous breath. Equanimity, pardon me. Right, back. Midline, hands in prayer. Stevie Wonder, right, inner vision. This way, out. Midline, grounding. Inner circumference of the rib cage. Outer fingertips. Sitting bones. Top of the head. Back. Touch both knees. Ground your sitting bones. Broaden across your sacrum to extend out through each knee as you naturally lift your chest. And then let it drop again. And then activate again. And then let it drop again. So we're introducing rhythm here. Doing this a few times. I'm going to bring my legs together briefly to feel the midline again. Oh, so I'm actually going to push my thumbs because I can tell that my groins got pretty open. So I'm going to push my thumbs into my thighs to get my knees right in front of my hips. So for me, some of you don't have that kind of rollout, but even if I can get my bones of my thighs to be more connected to my sitting bones, right? More straight expression of the sitting bones. This is what I meant by grounding. This is an expression of the midline. And lift my chest. Good, and then I'm gonna go back to the wider. So now we're gonna do the same, leaning over out to the side, all that stuff. And then we're gonna take the hand directly over the head and come back to the midline. So we're gonna go over. I like my bamboo here. Plant, right? I'm gonna open, express from the midline. So this would be this movement out. I'm gonna keep that expression and take my arm over my head. Come back into the midline. Out, back. Out, back. And then release. And do the same thing over here. Over, inner vision, grounding in inner vision, outward expression of the song, right? Keeping that expression back to the midline. Back. All the while watching this play through my legs. And then following what would be grounding. Good, and then back to center. Come forward. Right, so don't fall out of your chair, but obviously lift your chest and then fall back, come forward through lift, come back, come forward through lift, come back. One more time, forward through lift. Take a few breaths, don't let it get static. Hold and breathe. Good, and then release. Bring your legs together. Again, I'm going to find a way to ground the midline, so I'm going to do this again. So if I let my shoulders roll forward, I actually lose some of the benefits. So I'm not just going to hold them in. Then I'm going to activate. So try your shoulders up like this. This would be you being a scarecrow. That's why they're made of straw, right? This adds dimension to the midline. Feel that? Feel this. This is why shoulder stand is the queen of all yoga poses. Good, and then release. take your left hand up, exhale it over, turn, let the turning, rotating chest kind of smile. I know it sounds barfy, but because we're coming to the end of the practice. And then back. And then over. It's always harder for me to smile this way, right? And then back to center, and then forward. Practicing an inward grounded energy, so my forearms are on my thighs, because I know I'm coming towards Shavasana. But I want you to lift your chest. And I want you to remember not just the inward, so down. Feel the grounded home. Activate it gently by lifting your chest. Right? And then back down. I'm not working hard. I'm not doing upward facing dog. But I'm reminding, even in the hollowing, supporting darkness of Shavasana, there's a rise, right? But it's effortless in Shavasana. Down, rise, right? Then come back into a more symmetrically grounded position. Both feet, both knees, that I'm giving myself extra reference there. Right, both sitting bones, both sides of my breastbones, both sides of the empty space between my ears and my shoulders, and then also including my scalp. So I'm having to go inward to feel outward. Inward in order to feel support or to maximize support. Good, and then release, prepare yourself for Shavasana, however that means, right? So I'm gonna, again, I adopt kind of a similar position because I like the repetition. So now I'm going through the things I need to go through in preparation of Shavasana, which I will instruct too, but you can, once you start letting go of your face and the lips and the jaw and the inside of your mouth, and relax the base of the tongue to relax the inner ear, right? Feel the groundedness of your chair. For me, the back of my wrists on my legs. Bring in my thumbs together with sensitivity, because Shavasana is an incredibly sensitive pose. The balance is all about sensitivity. But the sensitivity, you need to feel your body at first, but then the mind has to stop judging. Re-soften the inside of your mouth, lips together, teeth slightly apart. Your sensitivity doesn't have to have an object. Feel the whole, W-H-O-L-E. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Gratitude from inner vision to out. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly deeper exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. If it's too bright, close them again. Right? And then open them. Right? So one of the things, I know this is going to sound super barfy, but I think this is what I experience, right? I think when I get to the quietest, deepest place of my awareness, of my, especially my energetic awareness, not my physically based awareness, deeper than that, I actually think that at the very core is gratitude, right? And I think that the mind has a hard time with that. And I mean below your mental take of it, right? Because your mental take is going to have all the pain and suffering and all this stuff, but the energy itself, I actually think might be grateful, right? And it's such a weird feeling. Like, I don't feel like I'm the author of that gratitude, right? And when I actually get there, I don't have to do anything to feel grateful, right? And that's, I don't know, you know, when you see someone with a disability, and maybe it's you, and you've got a certain number of students that come to mind, right? At their very core, I swear to God, they're grateful, right? It's like, you know, and one of them is Chris Becker, this guy with CP that has been my longest standing student. The guy just freaking, it comes right through his being. Like, he can't help it. He's got this most difficult body and he can't do a lot of things on himself, but it just like comes out of him, right? And it's like, and I know he gets credit for some of it, for sure. He could have ruined that basic truth in his mind-body relationship of gratitude by too much judgment, by being mad at the world, all the things that we do every day, right? But that level of his nervous system just comes right through him, right? And that's why he's been one of my favorite bullet students of a lifetime, right? I learned so much from that guy. And it's not because I find him inspiring. It's because I find him truthful.